Hello, friends. Welcome back to another edition of the PCS podcast, Pokemon podcast built by the community for the community. This week, we're recapping all things Louisville, where the PCS community was well represented at the event. We'll dive into the top performing decks and the tournament structure being questioned overall, and then go over how yours truly and a few other of the PCS members fared at Louisville. Michael, I know you had a family trip this weekend, so at first you didn't know that was in the cards when you registered for Louisville, so we missed out on you. But hey, how have you how have you been since the last episode?
Yeah, man, it has been awesome. Savannah, we went to Savannah with the family. We met up with my mom and sister. Stayed at an Airbnb just outside of Savannah, which is always really nice for the kids too. It's if you've ever been to Savannah, downtown Savannah, it's kind of tough to have a bunch of little kids running around, not a whole lot of space. So stayed outside, but spent some time in the city. Went to UGA's aquarium, stuff like that. So really nice
Oh, nice.
weekend. Not too far of a drive here from the Raleigh area. It's like 5-ish hours. Going there was wasn't the best traffic. It was a lot of people, leaving and coming back from the, Florida area on I-95. Saw a lot of linemen heading north up to the North Carolina mountains while also heading south to Florida as well. So kind of surreal to see the after effects of all of the hurricanes that
Wow.
the East Coast has had recently. So yeah, it took us about 7 hours to get there when we left on Friday, but coming back today was a piece of cake. So, but yeah, great weekend. Definitely was a bummer to miss out on Louisville, but it was awesome to see family too. We don't get to see each other that often, considering they live in Florida and we're here in North Carolina. So, whenever we have the opportunity to see family, we make it happen. So, good timing there. And yeah, didn't do a whole lot of. I think this is the trend the past couple weeks. Haven't done a whole lot of Pokemon. Life's just been crazy. I'm actually flying out tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoonish to Philadelphia for a couple of days for work. Don't expect to be playing a ton of Pokemon either this week. So yeah, it's just one of those phases as an adult where sometimes other things take priority over your hobbies, and that's kind of where I'm at right
Right.
now. But it's not been not been too bad. Trying to keep up with Pokemon as much as possible. I did get to watch day one most of the afternoon. I had it on my computer while we had 4 football games on YouTube TV. So it's pretty fun to watch that. So I got to tune in and out. Didn't get to watch any day two though, because we were spending the majority of the day in downtown Savannah, kind of out and about. So missed out on a lot of that. So I have not had a chance to watch any of the stream matches from day two. So I'm excited to kind of get to do that maybe tomorrow night in the hotel room once I'm done for the evening. Kind of just chill and be a nerd and watch Pokemon too. So pretty excited for that. But yeah, not too bad overall, man. I know you got a lot to share, so I'll pass it over to you. But yeah, life is good right now. Busy but good.
Good, yeah. And as fellow Pokédad, sometimes, like I said, it's just that constant balance between family, being a dad, taking care of other things, including obviously the thing that pays the bills, and then also trying to find some time for a hobby as well too. So
Yeah.
I read you loud and clear there as well too. So
Yeah, man.
yeah, last week has felt like a blur. Obviously, did the episode, and then Tuesday night was kind of my only night to play in the league challenge that we have going. So I played Andy. I ran Zard, and I was kind of looking. I was like, "Man, am I an idiot for not running 4 Arvin?" So I was like, I'll cut Taro, right? Just something going through." And then he played Lugia and kind of didn't have anything to do, so it's kind of just ran him off the board in game one. Game two was looking very much like that same way. I was up 3-6 in prizes, and then when I evolved my second Zard to get up because the other one took some damage, I mistakenly, because of the app likes to show you can accelerate all the energy. I accelerated my last fire energy on my Charmander, and I had Rotom benched, and I only had the one Double Turbo to retreat, but he had 4 boss obviously because he was playing rules list. So didn't want to math things out. I couldn't remember because I did have Thornton, rare candy and stuff like that. But I know I prized one of my Pidgeot EX in game two, and I honestly, because I drew all my cards and I cannot remember at that, and I was like, well, this is gonna take forever. So went to game 3, and then of course he had the broken Lugia hand where it was double chops in the discard pile turn one,
Ultra
and
Ball double
and
chops. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So lost in that, but then that night on Tuesday when I went to lay down, kind of started feeling the good old Midwest cold because all of the farmers were harvesting last week, so plenty of stuff in the air. So like everyone in Iowa gets sick around the same time,
I've never
and
heard of that. Interesting.
yeah, so it the first kind of seasonal sinus cold set in, and Wednesday actually I had to leave work after lunch because I was hit with the fever and I just physically could not be upright. So laid in bed and just was trying to take cold medicines, and Wednesday it even started with Carlos making probably the very wise decision of staying at home with his family because obviously no idea what the shape his house is going to be in due to the hurricane. So he
Yeah.
informed us, and as a man of his word, said, "Hey, don't worry about my share for the Airbnb. You guys use it. The next regional I go to." And I was like, "I got your back." So he was good, and then I let them know, hey, I'm not feeling too good, but I was like, don't worry, like I will literally drag myself there if as long as I don't have this fever, I'll wear a mask, all that sort of fun stuff. So, but yeah, Thursday morning, that's when my flight was. My flight was around 2 o'clock, but when I woke up, the fever was kind of gone and just normal cold stuff. So packed up as many meds as I possibly could in my bag, and flew out. Got in Thursday, hung out with Nick, who's in the Discord and stuff like that, and is from Ohio. And then Friday, just went, saw the event, got a wristbands, waited for Steven to get in because he had woken up at 3 a.m. or so, 3:30 a.m. and drove. And kind of one of those things where you went and got the swag, went got some good food, and then started to test and just get reps, which we'll
Yeah.
talk on a little bit later. And then Saturday we'll go over my recap. So then Sunday home, and then here we are. So yeah, quite a blur. We'll kind of talk about the Saturday and maybe thinking what the heck was going to happen Sunday, but we'll get there when we get there.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm glad to sound. It's glad to hear you're feeling better. I know that was probably pretty scary. You always also with kids too. You know how like typically before you go on a vacation, some kid always gets sick too. So
Yeah,
you just got to fill in for them there. But no, glad you're feeling better. Also, FYI, if you're if you're a video listener, you got to see the meta share a little bit earlier. I don't know if you saw it, Aaron, but I was sharing the day one
oh
meta analysis too. So my bad there. That'll be in the video, but all good. But anyways, let's go ahead and jump into the podcast meat of the episode. I think before we really dive into the meta share, like I was already sharing, let's take a look back to
yeah.
some of our predictions from last week and see just how close and or not close we were. We won't share any of the like obviously the tier list anything like that, but I do have pulled up our what we decided in terms of like what would the most played deck be, best converting deck, things like that too. So I think we were both spot on with our prediction in terms of what the most played deck was. I think we both said Raging Bolt, and from what I remember seeing on the day one and day two analysis, Raging Bolt stayed the number one deck in both days. Which brings us to the second of the predictions, our best converting deck. I said Terapagos, and Aaron, you are a stan of your word. You're a man of your word. You're a man of your deck, and you said
Yeah.
Reggie Drago would be the best converting. And while Reggie Drago certainly had they had a pretty solid run. I think we could still safely say that Raging Bolt overall, day over day, had a really solid run at it too. I don't have the conversion rates pulled up, but I know Raging Bolt held it held its
Went
a place at the top of the meta share.
almost, yeah, almost went up a percentage point.
Yeah.
Trap Ghost went up over percentage points, so
Mm-hmm.
that would be better converting.
Yeah. True. True. True.
Dragapult not. Lugia went up one, not a full percent, about 75 or 0.75.
Yeah.
Reggie Drago went up one and a half
2%,
percent.
almost two.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh no, yeah, 2%. Yeah,
Yeah.
2%.
So did it actually? It actually was the
It
best.
might have. I
I
think
think
it
so.
was the best converting.
Yeah. Look at you. 2 for 2 on the
Yeah,
predictions.
for foreseeing the future.
That's right.
But
You're
it was one of those where it felt really widespread and just kind of depended on what matchups you hit. But obviously, the decks we chose were one well represented.
Mhm.
Maybe actually, I was surprisingly Richie Drago was in that top five, but
Yeah.
and then Tropicos. Yeah,
Yeah.
obviously we knew that was going to be coming. Thick and strong. So
Yeah. I think I was expecting Raging Bolt to do worse than it did, but as we all know now, it was not the case. Uh, that said, most surprising decks that we said would show up, Maridon was what I said, and then you had mentioned Pidgeot Control or Iron Thorns. Um, Maridon really didn't make a ton of noise. I know there were some top names on Maridon. I know Jesse, friend of the
yeah,
podcast, was running it. I know our homies at the Beach Court. They also ran Maridon as well. I think Eric made day 2. I don't remember where Eric placed, but saw a lot of success there. But overall, I mean, Maridon it didn't make as much noise. And then in terms of yours with Pidgeot Control and Iron Thorns, there were some Pidgeot Control that did pretty well. I think there's one I'm seeing in the finished top 32 at 26th place. But I think we saw the best control deck archetype being Snorlax Stall,
stall, just
finishing
straight
12th
stall.
place.
Yeah.
Yep. So pretty close though for both of those. And then moving in forward, what deck is going to win it all? I of course stand out and said Lugia. Close. We had a good solid run with 2 in top 8. You had said Reggie Drago, and again, also pretty close. I think we were pretty spot on with at least seeing some of those in top 8. We were both correct with what country will take home the victory. Caleb, thank you for doing it for the United States of America. USA was well represented there. We had 5 from USA, 2 from Canada, and then 1 from Chile in
And
top
then
8.
yeah,
So,
Yurko, which we saw win in
mm,
Joinville,
joined
right? Because
the
he beat
yeah. He ran
right.
I think he ran the
Yeah,
same list
yeah,
back too, if I remember correctly.
yep,
Let me pull it up.
yeah. When I
Hmm.
saw him on stream, what night was
Ooh,
that? Oh, I
actually,
think
Actually, it's slightly different. He took a little bit of influence from Rahul and played Raikou in his list this week. Um, so a little bit of his, a little
okay,
bit of Rahul's. So yeah, pretty cool. He cut the Pheasantipity, looks like, for the Raikou, which I personally think is a solid choice.
yeah.
Um, Interesting. Actually, maybe his list was more like Rahul's this time around because I'm seeing the 1-1 Rat. I think he ran a heavier Cinchino line. Yeah, he ran a 2-2 the week prior, or not the week prior, but in Joinville. So, yeah, so a little bit different actually. It'd be interesting. I need to go back and look at the differences there. But yep. Anyway, so again, pretty close there. USA won it all, and then miscellaneous thoughts control did show up. Iron Thorn certainly showed up too. If you scroll down a little bit on day 2, I certainly didn't do great, but there's quite a handful of Iron Thorns that were present, and then Snorlax Stall certainly made its name this weekend as well. I suspect if they hit any number of the Lugias, that Snorlax Stall player did not have a great day, but some of the greats played it. Ryan Antonucci played it. Cal Connor played it. So some really big names out there decided that Stall was a good call, and we're rewarded for it. Walked away with some heavy points and some cash and things too. So not too
Yeah.
shabby overall, man. But yeah, overall it was I think we did really well with our predictions for the most part. That means we kind of know Pokemon a little bit. So good on us. Good on us, Aaron.
Yeah, or just really good at guessing.
That's true.
But
That's also true.
you kind of take the data with obviously what you're seeing with other podcasts that obviously we both listen to, and then just looking at some online results, and then kind of just going over okay what went well,
Yeah.
and where's really to me is probably just trying to find the trends of where things are at,
Mm-hmm.
and then trying to make some predictions into that. So
Yeah.
and with that, I kind of was talking Friday when we were getting deck lists, kind of finalized and talking through things and matchups. I kind of said, all right, here's what I think, the meta share. I was off on Raging Bolt a little bit because I said probably 15%. I was like, just because it's still kind of that beat stick. And then, said Terapagos probably around 10. I said Dragapult's likely if they're going to classify it, both together, if just Dragapult being the main attacker is going to be close to 10.
Mhm.
And then I felt like Lugia was kind of close to 9. And then I thought the Palkia was, going to be up there. And I was like, I feel like Zard could still possibly be played because a lot of people like playing Zard.
Yeah.
And then I actually kind of thought Reggie Drago, because of that, would be like at sixth or possibly even seventh. But Zard actually was probably then. I don't think. Yeah, I never saw the next, but I feel like it could have been Zard just because it was still seems
Mhm.
like to be still pretty prevalent in the room, at least around the tables that I was at throughout the day.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's kind of exactly what we did predict. Is just it's going to be a wide open. Obviously, we struggled a little bit with our tier making list, but it was like, well, if this deck hits the right matchups, it can win. Right? And
Yeah.
if you look at the top 8, various decks that we talked about that we felt fairly strong in the event. Um, we're well represented in top 8. Obviously, albeit the surprise of Lost Box having a resurgence, maybe they were reading a little bit overreading of the downplay in Drago, but uh, it made finals, right?
Yeah.
And another obviously, that finished 10-2 with in Ryan Ginsburg as well too. And I know Hedrick was on the winning end, but he obviously didn't make it. We all know the skill set that he has to be able to run hot and make a deep run in a tournament. So it was. I think this is kind of where we're at living in that. I mean, Raging Bolt winning now
I
with the
know.
heavy bravery charms, maybe that
Uh-huh.
starts to sneak back up a little bit more.
Yeah.
Which Snorlax stall is eyes are going to light up. Obviously, Lil is actually this weekend, so we have another tournament that we might not even have enough time, but maybe on our Twitter space and our socials, we can kind of talk about what we're thinking and stuff like that. So I'll try to make a plea to make sure I remind myself on Friday to get some thoughts out there for us, just because we have a lot to recap in this episode. Obviously, with Louisville, with so many of the members in the Discord being there. So,
Yeah.
and then day two we have up here, and we kind of talked about in our predictions, just recapping those. But yeah, Raging Bolt stayed the number one play deck. Terapagos stayed number two. Reggie Drago jumped up to 3. Lugia went to 4, and then Zard is where you see the really big jump, right?
Yeah.
Because and I have no idea. Um, it could have been just below 7% because I think Palkia Dustnar was 7.75 or something. So you never know. Zard could have been
Yeah.
like 6 or 7%, but obviously he had a really big jump. So I'm guessing in the conversion tables, Zard was there. That's kind of what I talked about, right? Where it's like, I can see it in this meta where it could be possibly S tier if it's more consistent, but obviously the decks that perform are using the Dust Stops and Dust Snore, and maybe that's just my own and I wouldn't say hatred. I don't care for the cards. I should say. There was a younger
I
gentleman who
saw.
I know. Dre, yeah, Dre posted. He started with a band Dustnar. I don't know if the cameras probably didn't pan to him there. I know he was really trying to get near the cameras for the TCG stream, and I'm guessing some Father Pikachu ushered him away, but he got
Quite a
a
few
lot of
signatures.
signatures.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could barely sign my name just even in little scribbles as well
Yeah.
too. So but yeah, day 2 kind of much of the same. Obviously started kind of jumping up. Dragapult is probably the thing you see here that just nowhere to be seen. I know there were a few decks that made day 2 obviously as well too, but it just doesn't have the best of times into Raging Bolt. And I'll talk about that in my matchup because obviously I played that in round 7 that I had to continue winning out to have a chance. So, but yeah, it was pretty, like I said, pretty widespread. I hit a lot of different. I think I hit every different matchup I can possibly think of. I don't think I
That's
had
awesome.
any repeats in
Interesting.
my 8 rounds. Yeah, in my 8 rounds. What we did, which we'll kind of talk about in a little bit as well too, but We did not, even though there was, what did I say, like 2,600 players signed up for an RK9.
Yeah.
I think the hurricane had a bigger impact than what we possibly were thinking.
Mhm.
So, because when I looked at Baltimore, I think you guys, when you were there, is like 460 some juniors and seniors. And I was like, well, take that. We should still be over 2,000 even if you take away. But
Right.
we actually only had 1,938 masters.
Mhm.
So when we are getting set down for the first match, they said they announced that and said that means you play 8 rounds.
Mm.
So immediately there, you knew you had to go 6-2,
Yep.
or you just had to eclipse 18 points, I should say. And so it kind of felt rough, which we'll touch on a subject later. But one of those where I think the hurricane affected a lot of travel. And then we had a pretty widespread top eight as well too. So we have limitless here. So I think the first seed going in was Reggie Drago, if I'm not mistaken. But we see a Raging Bolt, we see a Lost Box, we see the Palkia and Dusknoir, which was kind of the really hot deck that was talked about outside of Terrapagos, right?
Yeah.
Both being able to utilize those heavy Dusclops engines and Dusknoir to pop damage and take multiple KOs. And then we had a Charizard, making a surprise there. A Rage Drago we talked about, and then two Lugia list, and then just a straight Gabe Smart playing obviously just the Terrapagos Dusknoir. So kind of the top decks that were talked about outside of the Lost Box. Obviously, that is a huge surprise. But when you look at the player playing it, Michael Davidson is a younger player, but also a superb younger player
Yeah.
as well too.
That
So
whole
I
DDG
believe,
crew is pretty broken.
yeah, it's pretty stacked and pretty young. And didn't Michael make top cut at Worlds?
Yes, I believe
I'm
so.
pretty sure. Click on wasn't he,
Yeah, he made
or
he
did
made
he
8th.
bubble out?
Yep. Finished top in 8th.
8th, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. Yep, yep. So like I said, you knew there's players there. Um, but Caleb Bittermer ended up taking it down
Yeah.
with Raging Bolt. I did watch the finals. It was game one was um, pretty surprising. With being able to just stream Blood Moon Ursa Luna, it was kind of cool of what the deck was showcase of what it can do. But yeah, I was able to take that, and then game two, Caleb just basically was able to kind of run Michael over, and then game three was kind of starting, and things were getting rolling, and then I believe when I was watching, Michael took the a switch cart off a nest ball, or excuse me, did a comfy fire select is what I should say. Had switch cart and nest ball as possible choices, and he put the nest ball into the lost zone, and then he had the switch cart, but he already had prime catcher and everything, and he really wanted the nest ball to be able to stream his next play. And there was discussion if he could take it back and going through. They said they wouldn't, and I don't think like, and then that's what it was. So that was the thing. He was going, he retreated to get into an attack. Then they said that he had retreated earlier in the match. Um, the board state didn't change it all. Oh, that's what it was. Since he retreated early and got into another comfy, I can't remember if he retreated and then comfied again. So then he did see two cards he shouldn't have seen. I think that's what it was. So likely, and Michael, thank you for saving us time on this stream, is because he looked over at the judges. They talked, and then they said, "Well, hey, you retreated earlier, so you shouldn't have been able to get that comfy and active to see those two cards." And then he just instantly reached out his hand and shook Caleb's
Yeah.
hand. So but yeah, Caleb, we have not seen since Stockholm. Um, Basically, the speculation is may or may not have been serving a ban, but no one knows anything because Pokemon doesn't release anything. So, no idea. We know Caleb is a world class player, obviously, and he played Raging Bolt. So one of those, obviously, uh, believed in the deck. This one went into 3 Bravery Charms, and we know Xander Perot.
Yeah.
And if anyone has anything, go to day one of the stream and watch Xander Perot versus Ian Robb play in the last match on day one on either YouTube or Twitch for the official YouTube channel. Both brilliant and smart players, but
Yeah,
really
exactly.
cool matchup. That was pretty sick to watch and go through. But yeah, leaned in very heavily to this. The one highlight you see here, now of course it's a typical Raging Bolt, but they switched out the Sandy Shocks for the Slither Wing
Hmm.
specifically because it can KO that Terapagos
Yeah.
with the second attack, of course, because it does that and also
Yep.
burns. So you're able to get 2 extra damages. So I believe it even knocks out Blood Moon.
Yeah,
Yes,
it
it
does.
does
Yep.
knock out Blood Moon because you hit it for weakness. It's 240, and then with the burn
Yep.
effect, it takes 2 damage counters.
Yep.
So kind of little tech to slide in there. Obviously, very very heavy retreat cost.
You
But even
definitely want to
this,
start it.
like if you're able to, yeah, yeah, as well because
Yeah.
he is playing 3 switch card, and you see
Yep.
0 disruption on this. So, it kinda Michael knowing that, it may or may not knowing that, I guess I don't know, if the any of his opponent or any of his teammates on DDG played Gale, but you know, he knew his hand was never going to get
Yeah.
changed. So he was really able to do what Lost Boss does best, which is string together pieces to kind of solve the puzzle and get their board state exactly where they want it to obviously take six prizes. So I love the max consistency here. Um, the only thing, and he does have 2 Ultra Ball.
Yep.
I know Azul's always been on that, and I know people will say Azul hates the deck. He doesn't hate the deck. He's clearly said that, and he's getting you went ban happy in his
Yeah.
stream. Jeremy was watching was as an active watch of Zool's streams, and Zool was on the ban just banning everyone wagon on Saturday during the when he was restreaming it, which was kind of funny. But
That's funny.
I like the extra Pokemon search for this.
Yeah.
4 energy retrieval instead of 3, which means he's only running 5 grass. The 3 switch cards feels good because some have only been playing 1
Hmm.
and then 1 prime catcher. So this, I don't think it necessarily has him winning against Snorlax stall, but at
Makes it
least
a lot
helps.
better. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it makes it a lot better. And obviously, 2 Pokemon catcher, 2 Night Stretcher, which is a must, and then the 1 Pal Pad, and then the energy is 5-3-3 instead of 6-3-3.
Yeah.
But Michael, what do you think? What do you think of his list?
Yeah, I think for me the biggest thing that really stands out is the heavy bravery charm count. I've always been a big fan of
Hmm.
bravery charm for this list. I think heading into Baltimore, a lot of bolts were cutting it, or going down to minimal on the bravery charms, based off. I can't remember the list that it was based off of, but a list that was we saw earlier in the year. I think it was at Worlds, maybe even. But yeah, no, I think bravery charm is massive, right? Like you throw a bravery charm on an ogre pawn or a squawk or a fez or any of those things, it becomes not it's not a target anymore, especially for decks like Lugia who want to avoid the bolts because you can't really take those out with the Lugia unless you've got the Cinchino on the board or something like Blood
Yeah,
Moon. So like as a Lugia player, I'm chasing down the ogre pawns, the squawks. But the moment they just start slamming down those bravery charms, and to be fair, I haven't watched any of the stream matches that Caleb was in, so I don't know exactly where he placed them. But my presumption, and maybe I'm wrong here, is that he was placing them on some of the accessory Pokemon at times, or really putting them on the Raging Bolt to make it extremely tanky. Um, yeah, no,
yeah, a little bit of both.
yeah,
Definitely on Raging Bolt because in Michael specifically,
yeah,
obviously
yeah,
it
yeah.
gets pretty interesting when he was playing the Palkia Dusknoir,
Mm-hmm.
because obviously things with the Dusknoir at 13, but it gets pretty interesting for there. But put it on there's 290, and that's just
It's hard.
no decks.
Yep,
Yeah, no decks can really hit that unless Zard very very late game.
yep.
And even like for me playing Renji Draga, right? My goal is
Mm-hmm.
kind of to attack with Rad Zard over and over again,
Right.
and 290 is really annoying because I can't knock it out with the Giratina V Star attack or a Rad Zard.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but yeah, clean list.
Yeah,
We know he's a phenomenal player. He's always on the hunt in those day twos of making top cuts. So
yeah.
maybe some time away for reflection or anything. Came back and I loved on his Twitter. Forgot to grab it, but he found a cigar and took a picture of that. And he
Mm-hmm.
said I know he's a big sports fan because when
Yep.
I was in there in the event in day 2, he was wearing his Jordan Love Packers jersey
Mm-hmm.
because he's a Wisconsinite, and obviously they made him take that off for the stream
Yep.
matches. So he
Yep.
was representing go through. But
Yeah.
good list. I think this is probably a pretty much a definitive
Yeah,
bolt
I think it's
less,
clean. And
moving forward, obviously, because it got a dub.
yep, and knowing that Grant Manley had a lot to say in this, like, I mean, I'm fortunate to be in an area where Grant is at too, so I've seen this list circulating around, so
Mm,
I'm not surprised to see it doing well. And I think Kayla even called that out too. Grant was a big proponent of building out this list, and if anybody
yeah,
knows Grant, Grant's been around for a long time. Incredible mind at the game. I think I think a lot of the inspiration came from Grant's there. So cool to
yeah.
see. Cool to see it. To take it away, it's this was the tip of the iceberg for it. We've been all saying like Raging Bolt's good, but it's just never quite accomplished what it needs to do, and it definitely did so this weekend. So the next list, if you want to start with this, I know we've chatted Lost Zone, and but yeah, here's the list I got pulled up. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so this is something out of DDG is what I should say, because Hedrick, him, and then Caleb
Mm-hmm.
Rogertson all played this exact same Sisty. As I mentioned earlier, Hedrick did not get his winning in, but obviously Michael and Caleb did very well with it. Uh, Very typical Lost Box, right? They cut the Roaring Moon here, obviously, because putting 200 damage on yourself is not viable in the Dusclops and Dustnor days of our lives. But typical, four comfy, which is an absolute must, and then your accessory attackers. So you do have the one Sableye, the one Cram, the one Ninja, Blood Moon, obviously being a big proponent of being able to attack, Iron Hands, of course, and then I love
A Spirit
the
Tomb.
Spirit Tune
Mm-hmm.
tech. Yeah, it helps in so many different matchups because Rotoms, your Luminions, obviously,
Yeah.
and then Rotom specifically, obviously for stall, obviously their counter catchers still can bring things up, but man, that helps not having the draw three for Rotom, right? Because they have to have those pieces. And then, so I love the Spirit Tomb, and then the four Chorus, absolute must. The one boss, one Roxanne, so no Iono, just that's the only disruption, and then your normal whole bunch of fours in a Lockspots deck.
Yep.
So you have four Mirage Gate, four Nest Ball, four Buddy Buddy Puffin, four Switch Card, four Switch, four Super Rod. Sometimes let's get greedy and only play three, but I do really like that. Um, Two Lost Vacuum, and then your one of Heavy Ball, one of Night Stretcher, one of Pokegear 3.0, a Pal Pad, obviously, to put some of those supporters back in the deck. Prime Catcher being the ace spec of choice. I know Secret Box sometimes feels really good, but maybe that's more of like a Sablezard
Yeah, I think it's more Sable's
ace
hard.
spec than
Yeah.
that. Whereas this is you're obviously trying to get things gusted in to take two prizes with Blood Moon Ursaluna EX or your Iron Hands EX, a one of Rescue Board, four Pokestops, which is very similar to the build that Andrew Hedrick won at NAIC's. What this kind of reminds me of a very heavy turbo lost box, and then an energy count. So they're running 8, which is 3 water, so you can possibly get that ninja play off. 3 psychic and 2 lightning. I wonder why on the psychic as opposed to lightning, but I guess you really only need 1 lightning really to get the Iron Sand off. And I guess the second one's in there, I guess, for whatever reason, if you're ever using the first attack, which I don't think almost would ever happen, but I get it now because the
Yeah.
psychic, obviously, Blood Moon is all colorless. So,
Yep.
and you need it for obviously Sableye just to try to maybe clean something up. But
Yeah.
cool, it's fun to see
Yeah.
Lost Box come back. We should have looked at their run, but obviously we only have so much time in the episode. But I'd be
Right.
really curious, or at least I am going to go look at what matchups that Michael hit,
Mm-hmm.
because basically I I don't know if it was him, but I think it was Caleb maybe that posted on Twitter that I saw of just basically they're kind of using what Jesse said for his worlds, right? Charizard doesn't exist if I don't see it. So I think that was kind of their
Yep.
mantra of as long as I don't see Reggie Drago, I'm good with it.
Yeah.
Uh, and so pretty inspiring to see. Obviously Lost Box, we know like literally all of this rotates minus the EX and the Prime Catch and Rescue board, but like basically all of this rotates, or the Lost Box engine I should say
Yeah.
rotates
Exactly.
sometime early next year. So we'll see. I don't know, because I feel like Reggie Drago's still a top 5 deck in both of just play rate and results moving forward, but again, it's, I think with the widespread meta, you just got to dodge. You got to hope that you don't hit them, and then you feel really good and confident in some others. So, um,
Yeah, no,
wanted to
I
go
agree.
ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I think really it's just it's a clean list. It's very simple, no frills to it. It's just good players playing a good deck,
Yeah,
and having a little bit of luck go their way too and hitting the right matchups. So um, I definitely was not on my bucket or on my list of things that I thought I would see this weekend
not on the
do well.
bingo card.
No,
Not on the bingo card. Yeah.
not at all. But what was the Palkia Death Noir build, and this one's pretty straightforward from what we've been seeing a lot lately too. I think we've got the 1/1 line of Greninja here. You got your typical Death Noir, like it, love it, hate it, whatever, it's there. Palkia obviously being the bulk of the deck, but the rest of it again really straightforward. Nothing here really stands out to me that's too drastic from what we've seen. Um, Clean list overall, and I think it's a really fun deck too. I have to go back again. My memory is failing me on what Stefan's list was in comparison to this, but I don't see anything that stands out.
Pretty
Um,
similar. I think. One second, I can tell you because I'm literally on their Dortmund's page. So if I go to Dortmund and go to Stefan,
the only thing I'm maybe think it was the Mew EX in Stefan's list. Maybe not. I don't
that
remember.
that that is, yeah, that
Okay.
is a must. So the Pokemon line's the exact same as the
Mm-hmm.
trainers. Uh, so this list had 3 vessel as opposed to 2,
Okay.
and then as you just scrolled over, Stefan had 3 trekking shoes, where
Yeah,
this
that's what I was
only
thinking.
had
I think it was
1.
yeah.
And then 3 Pokestops still, counter
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
catcher. All of the one-ofs are the same. So what am I missing here?
Same energy count.
4 Night Switcher. Yeah, 7 and 7. 3 Pokestop, 4 Iono, 2 Irida, Nest Ball. So yeah, 2 trekking shoes. So that's 1 of 1. Like, why am I missing? I'm missing something. Apparently, I'm blind.
It's okay. We got dad eyes.
Yeah, because from what I see, the Pokemon's 17, and
Yeah.
if I count, that's 17 Pokemon I'm looking at.
18.
Rotom
We got
V.
18 Pokemon. Yes, the
Rotom
Rotom.
V.
There it
Yep,
is.
Rotom
Okay.
V. Yep, it took me a second because I was like, wait a
Yeah,
second,
yeah.
what's the yellow thing?
Yeah.
Which this player, when I was watching, because he was on stream a whole lot, but kind of the hot deck, kind of leading up in the tournament. But yeah, the Rotom was utilized. I saw a couple times. It just kind of that getting, just like Charizard, right? You're just trying to be able to one play the game, and then that
Yeah.
turn two you kind of explode out.
Hmm.
And obviously seeing 3 cards as opposed to passing because you're
Yeah.
not doing any sort of attacking with this turn one. Um, Obviously just helps you. So
It's a great
yeah, I
card.
feel like that's going to be kind of a on the up and up, as well too, just because I played against one of these in my second round, and it is, you got to be prepared for it. It
Yeah.
is, if they kind of get set up, and to me, obviously, in this matchup with like Reggie Drago, it's literally whoever gets to go first. I
Yeah.
think as long as they get to play the game and they don't brick. That's basically what my experience was, because we ended up with the tie. We got to turns in turn 3. Um, he was able to say he actually was going to be able to take 4 prizes that turn with what he had, but I basically foresaw it and said that the only way I can somewhat do this and not lose is play Curum and kind
Yeah.
of board all his babies, and I was able to do that. And he's like, that was really smart, and I was like, it's the play I told myself when I started my turn. And I was just happy I got there. Get there. So showing my skills, obviously, of
That's right.
continuing to win this game. So
Yeah.
yeah, pretty cool. Pretty cool. As like I said, I think
Yeah.
this deck is not going to be going away anytime soon. And I
I,
suppose we probably have just enough time to go over the Charizard list as well
yep.
too, just because that was
Let's
maybe
peek at it.
slipped on going in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Sebastian, um, definitely was a ham and egg on camera, making little smiley faces and kissing out to the crowd and stuff like that, and winking. So a younger player by the peers of it, but he was making me laugh when I was rewatching the stream
Yeah.
last night and this morning. But a very typical list of Zard here. I would say, I guess in this meta, right, where if you're trying to lean into that Dusclops and Dusknoir line,
Yep.
I'm not exactly sold on that yet. I kind of just like a very much straightforward Zard, maybe like a Tord Zard from EOIC, but you have your three Charmanders, your one Charmeleon, and then two Charizard EX, your typical 2-2 line of Pidgey and Pidgeot EX, and then a 2-1-2 line of the Duskull, Dusclops, and Dusknoir variety. Your Radzard, of course, that's a must in every single Charizard deck. One Rotom, one Lumineon, one Pheasantipede as your support Pokemon. And I do love how he snuck in the Cleffa,
Yeah.
because that is certainly one, a free retreater, but also if it starts it and you um, obviously Zard, almost everything wants to go first in this meta, besides obviously a few specific big basic decks to take KOs on their first turn, like Raging Bolt and Miraidon and Roaring Moon. But if you start Cleffa, it's just good, because if you're able to play some supporters and kind of deplete your hand with Buddy Buddy and Nest Balls and everything, instead of doing a Rotom play, you can actually draw up to 7 and probably have more cards in your hand anyway. So,
Yeah.
and the typical 4 Arven, 2 Iono, 2 Boss, 1 Toro, 1 Briar, 1 Thornton. That to me is literally that is the line of supporters in Zard
Yep.
moving forward. Whether you're doing the Duskull or Dusclops thing anyway, I think that's just exactly right. Maybe if you cut the Dusclops and maybe featured a different attacker or just maybe a thicker line of Zard, I suppose you could sneak a third Iono or possibly even a Roxanne in there, and then 4 Candy for Buddy Buddy Puff and for Ultra Ball for, or excuse me, 3 Nest Ball, because you have to be able to find those turn one. The Ultra Balls is a must to obviously find your evolutions to pair with that rare candy. 2 Super Rod, 2 Counter Catcher, and then the Ace Spec is Unfair Stamp,
Yeah.
which feels pretty good into this meta, especially if you ever were to do like a counter catcher play to knock out your opponent's Pheasantipede EX, on that same turn that you were able to play unfair stamp if you were able to pull that up before or either after the stamp, because obviously having only 3 cards is pretty difficult. And then the 104 Seal Stone and Defiance Band as your tools. They do have a Night Stretcher, of course. Then the Stadium of Choice is a Collapse Stadium, and then 5 Fire and 1 Mist, which I believe is something that I know
Yeah. It's
the
pretty.
Mist Energy made an appearance over in Dortmund, if I recall,
Yep.
and possibly even Baltimore as well, too. So
Not so much. Baltimore was the DTE. That's when people were
there you go.
running the
That's what
DTE.
it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
to do
mist is
230. Yep.
the mist is newer, which makes sense with the rise of Dragapult coming back into play and things like that too. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, no, this list is pretty clean. The Cleffa's been in for a couple of weeks as well. I love Cleffa in this list. It's we saw a lot of it earlier in previous formats. Um, and I know you're not a big fan of it. And overall, I don't love the card, but in this list, I really do think that the Dusknoir line is the way to go. There's a lot of really cool lines you can take, especially now with the addition of Briar,
Yeah.
and it just making sense, right? Like your main attacker is a Terra type Pokemon, so Briar just makes sense. And then, like there are times where let's just say you're playing a Dragapult, and you're not quite ready, or they haven't taken enough of a knockout. Like having the Ghost to be able to come in and take that knockout and things like that too is pretty massive too. So I do think
Yeah.
personally, I do think the Dusknoir is the correct way, but I understand your thought there too, of maybe chaining in like an Entei or some other type of attacker in the list too. So
Yeah, and I think that I just need more reps with the Dusclops and Dusknoir line,
sure,
just to get more familiar. Because
yeah,
I agree, like being able to do that, because one, it ramps up your Zard numbers, but obviously you
exactly.
can, 13 damage counters is the perfect number for Radiant Greninja.
Mm-hmm.
But also doing that and then hitting 210
Yeah,
uh, with a Charizard, obviously, if because they've only maybe taken one prize or something like that.
yeah,
Obviously, that basically knocks out anything that doesn't have a hero's cape on it. So he
exactly.
pulled off that exact play that you talked about to win Game 3 in the Reggie Drago top 8 match. So if people were able to see that, that was actually a pretty cool line, and he definitely, like said, that's where he ham and egged it up to the stream camera, which was pretty funny. So Sebastian seems like a character. Probably going to hear more from him, in the future, obviously. So, but
Yeah.
played the deck very confidently. So yeah, Zard kind of popping up there. Uh, the rest of the list, like I would say, the pretty typical Lugia list and the Reggie Drago list as well too. But in terms of essence of time, we're able, but Limitless does have them all there. So
Yep.
pretty cool to see Caleb, walk away with the dub here, and kind of come back on the scene. Obviously, with his first tournament back after not being seen since Stockholm. Alrighty. Well, we will go over. So we unfortunately, with the only 8 rounds and the new structure that was put in place in the off season, before Worlds when they released that back in June, if I recall, we had a number of top players that qualified going 6-2, right? Because that's what I talked about is you had to go, get to 18 points.
Yeah.
And a slew of them went 4-0. But because some of their opponents were able to maybe sneak in a tie to start at 19 points as opposed to 18 points, and they went
Yeah.
out,
Yeah.
that meant there was no asymmetrical cut this weekend, Michael.
Yeah.
And boy, was
Crazy.
there some top player frustrations. Did you count? I saw your mouse
Yeah, I
kind of
was just
hovering
counting.
over. Did you count
There
how
were
many?
10 that were 10-2, which
Wow.
is just insane. Just insane to me. Actually, let me double check my math there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, 10 of them. 10 that finished
Wow.
10-2. I guess I could have just done 9-19. I'm an idiot, but yeah. Uh, pretty crazy. And again, someone who didn't get to follow us closely until after the fact and reading the tweets and things like that. Like, I think it's quite clear. I've got a couple tweets here we'll pull up in just a moment, but I think it's quite clear that something's got to change. When we have people like Azul tweeting, and again, take this for whatever it's worth. I do think there's a level of sincerity here in Azul's message. But also Azul is a yapper, and everybody loves his character. But he says,
Yeah.
I don't think I'll be attending any events if X2 isn't guaranteed to make the cut. I think that would be incredibly detrimental to the game. I think I was listening to the Uncommon Energy podcast, and I always love every week when Chip and Azul get into it too, because Chip talks about how Azul's not showing up to any events and things like that. And I think it's definitely having one of the best players to ever play the game and in the world currently not show up.
Yeah.
It's a big deal, and I think there's a level of warning that TPCS should take when seeing a tweet from Azul like this. Is I don't think I'm attending an event if we can't fix this. I think as you read through the comments too, it's there's some. I like this one by Charble. Aren't you the very best? Like no one ever was. Is not just someone who likes to play a lot of Pokemon. So while he's joking around in the comments and things like that too, and he even has this first comment says, "I don't care one way or another about the invite system." I think it's something we need to take in consideration. Perhaps one that's maybe more of a real statement too, and just knowing Alex from following him on Twitter and things like that, he says, "Hey, I got 18th, top 32 for a 4-0 in day 2." This is one that you were talking about. Like there were
Yeah.
several of them that went 4-0 in day 2, and didn't make asymmetrical cut. And I think he's sincere when he says this is nonsense, and genuinely makes me want to just quit. I got a good kick out of this one though. He says resisting the urge to drop kick these booster boxes. I laughed when I read that, but I understand the frustration there, right? Like you literally are playing the best of the best. You go 4-0 in day 2, only lose 2 the day before, and you don't make asymmetrical cut, and you don't have a chance to win the event. Like, because who's to say that if Szymanski didn't, like, if he made it in top cut, there's a good chance he wins it all, right? Like, and it's one of those as a competitor myself, and as someone who knows Szymanski is competitive and loves the TCG. Obviously, the Szymanski family in general
Yeah.
have done a ton for the TCG. If you ever go to an event, Christopher Szymanski is a voice you hear quite often at these events too. So it says a lot. And then, another one I've got pulled up here for those of you who are watching, if you're listening, Nathan Ginsburg. Nathan is an incredibly chill dude. I got to meet him and Ryan when I went to San Diego over the summer and played at TC's Rockets. Super cool dudes. Their friend DC Tavo, super cool as well. He also went 10-2 and went 4-0 in day two, playing the Lost Box list, or a similar version of the Lost Box list the DDG crew played. Um, and there's Gabe Smart at bottom saying didn't even shout us out. Um, but again, finishing 17th place, going 10-2, like it's just wild to me. It's just insane. And he even said, and didn't get a chance to compete for the win because of this joke of a tournament structure. On top of not getting into ASIM 17th, cool deck though, good start to season. So yeah, it sucks. Like it sucks to see good players, good people, right? Like the three that we listed, Azul, Alex, and Nathan, are all top quality human beings as well as top quality competitors. And to see them getting kind of screwed over really does suck to see. And I think TPCI really needs to take these tweets and I know they see them. It's quite clear because of all the stuff that's been going on with the bans. So
Yeah.
it's quite apparent TPCI is, Big Pikachu is playing Big Brother and keeping an eye on what's happening. I think somewhere someone said even like, I don't want to say anything else about it right now. I think maybe it's Shemansky. I don't know. But like they're like, I can't say much else right now on Twitter because I don't want to be banned for something. So,
Right.
um, but yeah, I mean, I think there's a story to be said here, right? Like, and you see Antonucci, also, a regional championship winner, getting hurt by the structure. So I don't know. I don't know what's got to change. Obviously, I think as you called out in the notes too, like going sub 248 or 2048, like that makes a difference. But only in 4 rounds in day two is I don't know. I want to see more Pokemon. In day
Yeah,
two.
I mean, I understand their frustrations, obviously, because if you were told you have to make X threshold to advance to day two, right? And then you go undefeated as the tournament asks you to do, you don't get to a chance to play. And I think this is where the
Yeah.
issue arises of that whole structure that they changed of, oh, if there's under 2048 players, which I know isn't always going to be every single tournament, but obviously like over in Europe this really affects them because
Yeah.
they don't have that massive tournament unless it's EUIC, of course. So still paying at least $70, right? The price did not change from that, and people love to play. But I think this is where we don't see that separation out because when you only have 12 rounds, the best of the best goes through. So the players in day one, like myself, right? They got a tie because it was like, well, it doesn't completely knock me out. It just forces me to do the unthinkable,
Mm-hmm.
which we'll touch on here soon. But I think that's the issue is just there's no separation. It's just you're there. You went 4-0, but it's like
Yeah.
just because in day one my opponent was able to get a tie, that's how that 1 point threshold, that's where we had that huge bubble all at 32 or excuse me, um 30 match points, excuse me. So because they all went 10 and 2.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
um unfortunate where we see this. I have no idea how they're going to respond to this. Is we didn't even touch on it last week, but with the bands, just
Yeah.
it's very polarizing right now. Is all I'll say. Um, you know, I thought the venue was pretty nice. We got really good chairs. I forgot to take a chair so we could bring that in and compare it to the ones in Baltimore.
I don't think
Um,
anything's gonna compare to those crappy chairs, dude.
No, no. So, fairly decent. Not a overly a big convention center, but obviously we
Yeah.
weren't in the biggest hall that they had, obviously. Uh, but it was nice. Like Louisville as a town, I think probably like a 9 out of 10. Both places that we ate, where we just kind of walked around, it just generally seemed like a kind of a cool vibe and city. And then the venue itself, the convention center, maybe like like a 7 out of 10. Uh, the way that they had it set up, I know it's always talked about in all the podcasts of that hidden bathroom where you don't have to wait in line or walk through gallons of water on the floor or what have you, whatever liquids on there. But if you went out the exit, they made you horseshoe all the way back around. And I just never wanted to risk it of doing that and having to sprint all the way around. One, because I was having some respiratory issues with my head cold, so I'm sure my voice sounds a little bit different because I can't really hear myself. But yeah,
You sound
I
pretty normal.
think yeah, okay, good. So I think it just is unfortunate. I don't think we'll see it. I shouldn't say a knee jerk reaction based on what happened last week with bands, but we'll
Yeah.
see. Or even issuing a statement like that would be a huge step. They still have yet to ever. I know Azul's called it out, and others have of like just on the bands, like if you do it in Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh, like there's an article, it's written, here's why, here's the, it's an official statement, whereas ours, it just magically happens. So
Yeah.
we'll see. I guess the next one for us is it Sacramento? Is it that
Yeah,
long of a wait?
Sacramento's the
Okay.
week before Thanksgiving, I believe.
LAS. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, it's after LASE
Yeah,
because
it's
they
after
moved
that. That's right.
LASE
You're
up.
right.
So
You're right.
yeah, that one replaces it. So
Yeah.
yeah, quite a long layoff. I know Europe has a slew of tournaments
Mm-hmm.
coming up here as well too. Because I know we have Lille this upcoming weekend. I think there's a break, and then it seems like there's a regional almost every week for about 6 weeks, or pretty darn close. So, or at
Yeah.
least an event, I should say. Maybe there's a special event. So, but yeah, unfortunate. I think really the numbers. I think it was affected due to the hurricane, which
Yeah.
no one can talk about. I know we were talking to, or at least I was talking to some people about Florida and everything because I'd reached out to Poke Brews and it sounds like it did kind of veer more south instead
Mm-hmm.
of where it was coming north. But I know they talked about people literally just ran out of gas on the interstates and
Yeah.
freeways leaving Florida is because you couldn't move. Just so your car, even though it's running, it's still using gas, even though you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So very unfortunate. I think as soon as they announced it, I'm like, wow, that really did affect. So
Yeah.
just kind of changed the mindset. Slight plus that we're able to get done and out of there earlier before 8 o'clock, but also the downside of as we saw in day two, people going undefeated and then not
Yeah.
being able to compete for a championship.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll be interested to see moving forward. Perhaps mainly in the NA, North American region, but it'll be interesting to see how all of this and the bans will impact the level of interest that people have in attending these events too. I haven't checked the numbers. I'm not going to Sacramento, so I'm not sure what registration looks, what it looks like there. Um, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think overall the player basis is a little um, disenchanted right now with where TPCI is taking some things too, and doesn't help that the meta is not everybody's favorite right now either. Um, so I know personally I am in that little funk stage of not really loving where it's at, but still love Pokemon at the end of the day though. But that said, I think we can move on. I know we're running late into the pod episode, but I know you've got a lot of great things here. I've got your run pulled up. Looks like you even hit a Cinderace. Or maybe that wouldn't have seen that on my bingo card either. But hey, it is what it is. But I'll share the screen. Let we can jump in, chat a little bit about your run. I know you also want to briefly talk about some of the other PCS crew and just the PCS members. Because
Yeah.
again, you had there was a great showing there. I would love to see some pictures. Hopefully, you guys got some pictures. Haven't seen any pop up on social media just yet, but hopefully, you guys got some of that.
Um, we sucked at taking pictures and
Oh, come on.
we all yelled at each other on Sunday. I mean we spent every waking minute together. So there was a lot of
I know.
bonding had and a lot of jokes and just a lot of talks
That's
about
awesome.
love the game and then just getting to know them because they're all pokey dads like you and myself. So just talking about their children. We did Nick Savior was able to pull up one at the
Here we go.
pizza pub. Yeah, at kind of the pizza pub that we ate at. That would have been Friday
All
after
right.
we
All
got our
right.
swig and stuff like that. We had some food and then we went back and did a bunch of testing. So,
Good.
uh,
Thanks,
yeah,
Nick.
Friday. Yeah. Nick was a saver and I was able to take some pictures.
Pizza looks good
It
too, by
just
the way.
It was really good. And the waiter was hilarious, and he was a big Magic player and stuff like that. And
Oh,
I was
nice.
joking him, and I was like, "So pizza is probably." And he's like, "Well, we are called the pizza parlor." And I was like, "Yeah, right. You can slap me across the face if you want for asking that question." But the wings, actually, he said were the best thing, and that's I got an order for that for the table, and then yeah, the
There you
pizza
go.
pizza was pretty good. So
Nice, nice,
yeah,
nice.
Friday we spent a lot of time testing in the afternoon. Thank you, Jeremy, for all your reps into Dragapult, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. And then Friday night, just I think that's besides playing. Obviously, playing is really fun as long as you have another person that plays with the same spirit of the game, which thankfully I did in my run. Thank goodness. Um, but those final deck choices, man, just
Yeah.
the like 3 hours of just laying out the list, talking through, figuring out what the meta is. And I will pull up the list afterwards, but just kind of went with something that I tried to play, allowed me to play the game and, utilize every resource that I possibly had. So I started off with Roaring Moon. Of course, I won the coin flip. I won a lot of my coin flips, thankfully.
Should have
So I
played
got to go
Lugia,
first.
sounds like.
Yeah, yeah, it sounds like go first. Was able to get a decent enough setup. I saw Roaring Moon obviously in the active. Um, but game one kind of went exactly how that matchup should go, at least for me, right? You're gonna go lose some two prizers. But the nice thing is you just have to get 3 energy on a Teal Mask Ogrepon and take a response. And I had a list that had 3 Iono that I was just really, really hard staunch on, and no one was going to change my mind Friday at all. But I just knew basically my line of play was attack with Radzard, Iono, obviously, and just say you have to have the outs. Looking at the stuff in the discard pile, knowing that that was line and game one executed exactly how I wanted to execute, and games two and three. Uh, you can't get to play if you don't have a Pokemon to play. So started off Halucha and Kyurem in game
Nice.
two, and saw no outs to anything. And then game three, he had a Pokestop in play, but I started Radzard and nothing else. No Nest Ball, no Ultra Ball, no even research because uh,
That's
he for some reason chose first after he lost, which I thought was a little perplexing. But since I lost, I wanted to go second, of course, because I wanted to one see a resource. But saw no supporter, and Pokestop fetched me nothing. So I said, well. Pass over to you, and I'm guessing you have the KO just because his board state was pretty flawless on his first turn. So took the loss there. Then played Palkia Dustnor, and I talked about earlier. Basically, he won game one because he got to go first. I went first in game two and won. It's a really interesting matchup and one that I probably need more reps with just because with how much Palkia Dustnor. But the lines are certainly there for me to do some board wiping and kind of
yeah.
his same way as Palkia. They can kind of boss up those ogre or excuse me can kind of KO those Teal Mask ogre pawns and counter catcher prime catcher it up. And Palkia, just if your Reggie Drago's not there, it's kind of tough to deal with sometimes. And my plan was trying to get into Gudra, but obviously you can't really do that when a Duskull's on the bench, so you have to attack with Dragapult. And sometimes with me, I believe I had to play Squawk because my hand just was a Squawk hand to get through just to be
Yeah.
able to play. So took a tie into there. Game three was we went to turns. Um, and like I said, I pulled off a cool cure and play. A lot of these I'm going to write kind of a diary, just the whole PCS crew in for our Patreon members, and I will divulge into a lot of lot of thoughts of going through like I did at my NAIC run. And then went to round three, and the guy flipped over Ogrepon, and I said, "How in the heck do you have a tie?" And it sounds like you played stall. So it sounds like that was a win loss. So they were able to tie there. So I yeah, I didn't divulge, didn't ask questions further because then it's like, well, I'm kind of baiting him to tell me his list and stuff. But anyway, um, Jeremy gave me a couple reps with this on Friday, and that certainly helped. And obviously, some of the coaching I got are just asking questions. I kind of was baiting him to take out my Reggie Dragos while I secretly just kept powering up Radzard, and I won game one with 3 attacks of Radzard. He was not able to find a Bravery Charm. And I really feel like my 3 Iono was just a strong play, because sometimes I did have a research and Iono, but research I was just throwing away all resources that I really needed, knowing that I was going to need more than those off the Legacy Star. And game two was something interesting. He just could not find lightning energy in the discard pile, or just drawing in. He wasn't finding vessels. And my board state was, I was at least able to get things in there, so I kind of just started powering up Radzard, and actually took a KO with it on 5 energy. Which, please tell me someone if they've ever done that before in the history of their lives, having a fully charged up 4 grass energy and 1 fire energy and a Radzard. I thought about scooping just because I wasn't getting the pieces that I needed, and I'm trying to remember if I even had an attacker in the discard. It was a really weird sequence, but like I kind of, as we kept going, and then all of a sudden they announced time, and I was like, oh, thank God I didn't scoop, because I did was thinking about that, because I was like, this is going too slow, and if he just blows me off the table, like we're not gonna maybe finish, or I could get donked or something too, based on
Yeah.
what happened in round one. But went to turns, and I just got Cleffa down, Halucha down, and Radzar down, and just basically said, there's just no way you can take 6 prizes, because I'm not benching any more 2 prize Pokemon. So uh, that was good. Cleffa was a key MVP in there, I'll talk about later. And then, shockingly enough, saw at 4 points was a Cinderace and Pidgeot EX deck. Basically, substitute Cinderace and Score Bunny with your Charizard line, and basically that's what the deck looked like.
Interesting.
Um, yeah, with this one though, I kind of talked to him. He was from Puerto Rico, very nice. He'd been playing for a little while, maybe mid 20s, maybe. Um, but he wasn't playing any Earthen Vessel, and he was playing Dark and Fire Energy, so just maybe not the most refined list. But I couldn't honestly, when I saw the Score Bunnies, I was like, I don't even know what, and I know a lot of junk cards in the TCG, and so when he finally evolved, I'm like, let me read that bad boy, and then I just saw it does a clean 280 and
Yeah.
has free retreat, and so then I was like, oh no, that is not a good number for me, because he can just blast off anything that I have. Uh, but was able, Iono was key in this matchup. Just kept Ioning both games, and just kind of game one was really close. I actually kind of came from behind with there because of the Ionos, and just I never let him get a Pidgey set up, because I was able to at least get a Dragapult attack off to KO the Pidgeys. So, and I don't remember ever seeing Thornton. And then game two, I just kind of controlled it and kind of ran him off the board, in there, and took a dub. I should have said, after I started Lost Tie, I realized I have to win out in order to make day two. So that's what I told myself. I'm just going to continue to try to play it as clean as possible, and just hope that I hit the matchups. So then, obviously, round five, hit a Charizard. Um, and boy, I felt bad for that guy, because he rode him like 4 times, and
Oh no, that's the
yeah,
worst.
I did not have very much to go, so that's why it went to 4 turns before I finally was able to cure him. Did I cure him again? Might have cured him again for 6 prizes in game one, and then game two it was another, like, it kind of heard the sigh, right? Because you gotta have to read your player, your opponent
Yeah.
from time to time. That's kind of a little tip of, don't always constantly be looking at your cards. Kind of get them organized and feel like, all right, this is likely the play that I need to go with next turn. But I really like to kind of look at my opponents, especially when they're doing deck searches, to kind of see if their eyes light up, or they kind of roll their eyes or something like that, or make any groans. And he just didn't really have a setup in game too, so kind of just was able to do the Reggie Drago thing and kind of sweep him off the board. That one there, I remember game two, I was nervous because I prized 2 Regidrago V Star, so that one, but thankfully never came to that. Excuse me. And then so there was a local from Drew's Locals out in Reno, Jose, who finished 5-2-1 as well too, and he got 237th. And he had said he had hit a lost box, and I was like, really? I was like, because I hadn't seen those left or right of me during my rounds. And he sent them my way because I said, please send one of those to me.
Yeah.
Uh, I will give the guy credit. I think he'd been playing for exactly like just over a year. Sorry, Michael, I gotta clear my throat.
No, you're good, man.
And he was able to game one. He never played a chorus the entire time.
Deck doesn't work if you can't
Um,
play a chorus.
yeah, he just kept kind of comfy and flower selecting. And he had started Iron Hands, which was unfortunate, but I kind of had
Yikes.
another slow start, so I actually ended up two hit KOing it with Teal Mask Ogrepon, which is interesting. Don't know if I'll ever do that again. Um,
We take those.
but yeah, I think this was a one, yeah, based off what I had, and then looking at my notebook when I was kind of jotting things out for the Patreon post was I priced two Regidrago V. And I had no idea if it was like a Turbo Moon, right? Because just the list that we talked about earlier was a really good list, but I had no idea what they were playing, so I was really scared of losing that one V before it got into a V star. And he did really so eventually he kind of just I just kind of ran out of resources. Was able to save my V star when he Roxanne me because I knew that was coming. And then game two was probably when I kind of started to make some peak plays, at least for me, just in terms of where I'm at in the game. But game two, again, avoiding Chorus at all costs, right? He's not going to play it. He just flat out is not going to play it. So I kind of baited him. So I finally discarded Curum because in game one, I benched it right away. Or not right away. I think I just benched it naturally because it might have been my starter. I think that's why I had to attack with Teal Mask, which I believe is actually factually correct now. So what happened was I knew, so I played a Night Stretcher in my list after talking with Drew, and we'll kind of go over to that here in just a couple minutes. But I did the Kyurem, right, with my Regidrago, but I purposely, because he actually was able to get up, he bundled, and I just kind of fed him a Regidrago V so he could neck it out with Cram, which just helped me because it created more bench space finally. And didn't play Squawk obviously either of these games, knowing that that is an easy target for them with Iron Hands to get three prizes. So I had him get up, and I was behind. So I think the pricing was like three, yeah, 3 to 5. And my Kyurem play with that didn't have to use my Legacy Star, still had that in. But my thought was if I do this, I cannot go into Roxanne range because there's just too much resources in my deck. And even though, yes, I possibly still have my V Star, like it's just, I didn't feel comfortable with where I was at. So what I did was knocked out Cram to get that annoying little spit in his out of the way, and then I purposely did not knock out any of his comfies because he had three in play. And yes, the natural thing a Regidrago might think of is knocking out three comfy, but then I knew Roxanne was in play. So
Yeah.
what I did was put 110 on Radzard, who he was building up obviously as a with Defiance Band that does a clean 280, and then Pheasantipity, knowing that I could Legacy Star and get the pieces back and try to do it again. But secretly, off my research before I did this play, I drew into my Night Catcher, and Kieran was in the discard. So I was like, ooh, if he finally plays a Chorus, I still have Prime Catcher because I kind of had a goaded hand off my research play because it was Night Stretcher, Prime Catcher, and then I
Yeah.
think possibly, I might have had an energy, just in the hand. So I was like, all right, depending what he does here, if he knocks it out with like a Radsard, what I can do is just, retreat off my Teal Mass that has an energy on it, and then hand attached or Night Stretcher up to Curium, and then board wipe him for 4 prizes. Um, and so then he did that, and then he kind of paused and he's like, and then he played Chorus because he couldn't play Roxanne. And I was like, perfect. He took the bait. He
Yeah.
did, whatever. I can't even remember if he took a knockout or anything. Um, Showed him Night Stretcher, picked it up, put it down, attached to it, said Prime Catcher up, Pheasantipity, and then cure him for 4 prizes. And he's like, you staying on Roxanne played was a really big brain play. And I was like, yeah, I kind of realized that because I almost started to say, take out the 3 comforts. I was like, all right, I'm going to try Frost.
Right.
And I just looked at the board state and realized what it did. So felt really happy with that. And then round 7, played a player that has made some day twos. I took a cue out of Josh told Jeremy, he's like, hey, when you start to play, like you should probably look them up on Limitless to see if they've ever had any results. And his name was Victor, not a chatter. Nice gentleman still, but just no small talk whatsoever. So he played Dragapult and going with all the reps. So Jeremy, thank you so much. I thank you in person and thank you on the pod as well too. We played that matchup I think like 5 or 6 times on Friday, and this is when I decided to cut Noivern, and I'm glad it did because it would have been useless this entire day. And Gudra, game one, I
Yeah.
just kept Gudraing everything, and they just cannot do anything. And then as soon as he would get like a Duskfall in play, then I would Dragapult at that, and then just go back into Rolling Iron just to basically make a 3 prize KO. And game one kind of played out. It was kind of one of those where it's back and forth. He was taking prizes, I was taking prizes, but like I just feel that matchup is good. Game two is, like I said, probably what I'll talk about is I was getting to the stage where I knew I was going to have a knockout and he was going to Roxanne me because he hadn't used the Force Seal Stone. Um, so what I ended up doing is I had both super rods in there, and I realized after this play is I was going to boss their Rotom V. Excuse me, they hadn't attached Force Seal Stone. They just had Rotom in play. I was going to boss it because I needed to go to 2 prizes, and I put 4 damage counters on his fully loaded Dragapult EX, knowing that I could teen it next turn if I got the resources. But I've used basically I put 2 V-Star back in the deck, and then as much as all my energy I could find, knowing that he's going to Roxanne me, and I have Legacy Star still in play. But I just needed to basically find a Grass Energy because I had a Regidrago V with a Grass and a Fire on there, and I was like, well, he's gonna have to take out the V-Star, or else he just loses. He did exactly that. He Ultra Balled to get the Luminion, and then grabbed Arvin for supporter and or excuse me, an item and a tool. Roxanne me, and he gave me the V-Star and a research, and I felt so bad because I kind of like did one of those. You peek at the 2 cards and you just put
And you
them
just,
down, thinking
yeah.
like as is in discuss. He did it, and then I evolved. Promoted my V, evolved, played research, found the Grass Energy, and said lost impact for game. Um, so that was fun. I cannot describe the amount of joy that I had that just knowing that I was on a winning end.
Yeah.
I felt really good, especially rounds 6 and 7. Like I said, I kind of started to peak and was kind of seeing the plays in front, so kind of hit that zone. Um, so at table 80, go down and see Dylan Ryan. Look him up on Limitless, and he's actually a locals from Nick's area in Ohio. And I saw he played a lot of day two, or Zard last season, and made some day twos. I think maybe in like a 37th at somewhere. And he won the coin flip. Said I'll go second. I was like, interesting, because I was like, why? How another Raging Bolt with a tie? Like that just doesn't make sense to me. Um, Mulligans, and that's when I see the Erie, the Misfortune sisters, the counter catchers, and he goes, well, surprise, and I was like, I just Michael, talk about going off a high and just
Oh, I
literally getting
know.
kicked in the nether regions, and just and had listened. I think I re-listened to the VOD of Ian Robb's list of just what he does for Snow, and he's like, you kind of really don't have to do anything because he's like, unless you can be aggressive, but he's like, you just got to do a lot like attach pass. Don't take prizes till like you can get there. I tried that, but dude, I think he was playing for Misfortune Sisters instead of like sometimes 2 or 3, and I just
That's
yeah,
unfortunate.
just was going through, and he played a one of Cornerstone Mask, and he started at both games, and he only plays one of them, so
Jeez.
no Snorlax or anything. So that was really unfortunate. I made game one last as long as I could, but basically it was kind of deck out because I just ran out of time. Was able to take one KO because obviously I had that. He kept hunting for the switch, but it was in my prizes, which I took it off conveniently off that, which then he promptly eried. So that was funny. And yeah, just that deck is I don't know how you win unless you're Ian Robb and you get like the perfect hand, and on stream you can just blow up whatever that they have. So I felt really discouraged, but was happy of going through.
Oh man,
It
top
was
two
it was
fifty
fun.
six is awesome.
Yeah, top 256. Got 18 packs. Was able to pick those up. I did post a picture of the list in the Discord as well too. Pretty typical Reggie Drago. Your attackers are two Polt, a Kirim, a Gudra V Star, and a Giratina V Star. Your other attacker, Radzard, that I use pretty frequently in most of my matchups. I felt like Halucha was a must with the amount of 70 HP basics running around. Pheasantipity is a must, and Squawk is a must, and then Cleffa. I was a huge Cleffa fan. I was testing a lot with both Cleffa and Muex, and then a chatted Drew, which we'll talk about in some of the cards, and then three Teal Mask, three Reggie Drago V and V Star line. Your balls search is always going to be four ofs for Nest and Ultra. I played three Earthen Vessel. I was going back and forth of playing only two Fire and then four Vessel, but in some opening hand sequences and just testing, there's a twice that I priced two Fire energies. Like I can just never do this. And then four energy switch, a switch. Supporter line is three research. I know I might get some heat on that, but I played three Iono and two boss.
Yeah.
The Ionos really, won me a lot of games. I really felt them with that. I landed on a Temple of Sinna just because I thought Lugia was going to be really good. And it was really good at the tournament. I just didn't see it. I didn't see a single special energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, didn't see a single special energy all day. Prime catcher is a must, but then to me is always I kind of like run out of space to recover things. So I chatted with Drew. So thank you for being up late. So it's getting pretty late in Louisville, but thankfully it was 3 hours behind. And I settled on a two super rod, a one of night stretcher, and then the superior energy retrieval. And those felt really good, knowing that I kind of would, as I was doing my deck searches, was kind of like, what's my recovery options here? Because then I kind of feel better. And the longer you're able to not use your legacy star, just the more games you're going to win. But even with that, it was always like, all right, well, is there still a research in deck or in the prizes that I know I could hit off that? So, and then I went back and forth on the Canson clone. It was between like Night Stretcher, Canceling Clone, and the Temple were like the three cards I just really just thought about an E-Hammer, and then we were trying to maybe even think of a different attacker, and then other things as well too, and then Mew EX, no Mew EX, going back and forth, but really fun list. Like I said, appreciate all my opponents. But yeah, fun, and I will post in our Patreon probably everything you ever want to know about Reggie Drago. And if you ever have me any questions on deck building, please forward or just my thoughts. But something that I played since it's been really bad. And I know Maddox from the Beach Court TC. I was able to meet those nice fine gentlemen, and we talked. And I know Maddox also was playing Reggie Drago, and I was like, well, I've been playing it since it came out, and it was really bad then, and so I was like, I have to do it. So pretty fun. Jose, who had mentioned, he got two top 256 as well too. Nick was able had a rough start, but was able to get a couple free dubs, and he went 5-2-1 as well too, but 279th.
Was
Steven
Nick
went five
was
and
Nick on
yeah,
Lugia? I know Nick's also been
yes,
okay.
yeah.
Cool.
On Lugia, yep,
Shout out
him.
to Lugia fam.
Yeah, and then I well, hopefully he posts a tattoo that he got. I'll let him
Ah,
reveal
okay.
that. I don't know how he was breaking that to his significant other, um, but yeah, the tattoo's pretty cool. Is what I'll say. But yeah, he played that. We like I said, it's just fun those Friday nights before when you're looking at decks and you're just talking shop is I think some of my favorite memories of these events that I've gone through. Um, Steven went 5-3. He played just the normal straight Palkia Noctowl line. No Dustnar or anything like that. But I know as soon as he was done, he's like, I gotta practice the Dustnar because he goes that I think the lines of play there are just infinite. So he was kind of actually in the running. He was in that first round we all lost besides him. So we're happy going through. Jeremy, who was the other member there at the Airbnb, this was his first regional. Um,
Nice.
and his first, so he was practicing Dragapult with Carlos a whole bunch, but in playtesting, he just was not getting any hands, so he reverted back to Golden Go, which he had played a whole bunch of months prior. He said he's like probably got hundreds and hundreds of games in of that, so he switched over to that last minute. It's always It happens all the time at these things. So,
Yeah.
but his first, he had game in hand and he had one card left, and he was facing a Raging Bull player, and the Raging Bull player put down that Iron Moth that discards, or excuse me, yeah, Iron Slitherwing is
Slitherwing,
what
yeah.
it is. Iron Moth is the future one, but the ancient one, Slitherwing, he lost on the discard
That's
of the.
rough.
Yeah, I was like, I feel so bad for you, man. Round one at your first regional, and that's how you lost. I was like, especially with game in hand and stuff. So, and the Iron, or excuse me, the Raging Bolt matchup might be fairly hard on that. I guess the only thing is they have to do an odd prize
Yeah.
at some point, because you're just the stage of one price Pokemon. But he went 0-3 and dropped, but he had some dad stuff going on with his boy that was being dressed, but thankfully he didn't have to leave or anything, and it sounds like things are going to be okay. But I know he direct messaged me today, just saying he had so much fun. He's like, I'm already starting to practice for next, so I know he's itching. Kind of once you get that first regional
Oh
taste,
yeah.
you want to keep going. And then we met Pat from Canada. He had reached out when I talked about, hey, if anyone's looking for a place, I'll take anyone as long as we have open space. He had quite the journey. I think they got in like at 3 a.m.
Jeez.
Saturday morning, and he said 3 hours of sleep, which is like, that's more than enough to play. He played the Balkia Dustnar as well too, and he went to 5-3. So it was really nice to meet him.
Yeah.
He's been listening to the pod, he said, for quite a while. So um, a lot of fun. To the pals that were there. Obviously, the biggest one there, we brought up Carlos multiple times, because I know how much that guy puts in the work. He puts in so much more work than I do. I wish I was had the power to grind live. I hate the app, but I felt really bad. But he did the smartest thing, and was
Yeah.
just taking his family, which is what um, something I appreciate about in our Discord, in our community, that we continue to grow, is just the amount of good people that we have, that make the wiser decision and not put a personal interest above things of their families. So
Absolutely.
thank you everyone that reached out, that commented, that was following in the Discord. I was doing my best of updating everyone's results as the day went on. I know sometimes I may have risked a round or two, but sometimes it was because I was going to turns, and by the time I refilled my water bottle and used the restroom, it was getting ready for the next round and then talking shop. But met a lot of players. Got to chat up with like I said, the beach court guys. Saw Kieran Farah again and talked to him as well too, and congratulated them because they had just done their 100th episode and kind of 1 year anniversary. Knew he was doing well. Saw Andrew Hedrick and chatted him because he's a fellow Iowa player as well too. So just a lot of fun, man.
Yeah.
We were already all itching about, is it NAIC, is it Milwaukee, what's the next big PCS hookup. So we'll see. I mean, if we can do NAIC and all of us can get enough work off, I mean, that's the place
That'd be
to be.
awesome. Yeah.
It's a big convention. So thank you for everyone for listening. We're in round 3 of our 4 Swiss, and then top 4 will advance. I will post in the Discord. I was able to get some goodies. So I will post what the winner will be able to get for this round. I don't know. Did you catch? Speaking of the PCS challenges, did you see DK's post of his ETB?
Yeah, it was pretty broken.
He pulled the SIR of the Terapagos and then the Grand
Mm-hmm.
Tree, and among other goodies. So yeah, become for just $3 a month. You can be a Patreon member and play in our tournaments,
And make
and
money.
also be and one, make money as he did, because that I I joked with the anonymous donor of like, you should have kept that one for yourself and shipped the different one over to him, because that one was good. But I love it. And then our bi-monthly raffle, like I said, I was able to give Jeremy his starter deck box and some sleeves as well too. So
Yeah.
like I said, it's fun to go through. But that's the pod for tonight. I did that with only almost losing my voice and coughing up my lung one time. So I'm proud of myself.
Well
I
done.
lasted
Well
this long.
done.
Thank you to our patrons, aka our Patreon members, for helping support the show. Everything you had, obviously, one helps kind of go right back in the community with all the goodies that Michael and I can find. If you're looking for more from me or just the PCS crew in general, it is on X or Twitter as PCS underscore pod. Our Twitch is at PCS Podcasts. I think I just need to do that and just stream some Drago and go through, run my list back and see if I can do anything on ladder.
There you go.
Patreon.com/PCS Podcasts, where you can sign up at different tiers and there's all sorts of goodies. Michael, you're going to have to close this up, buddy.
Yeah, you can find us. Oh, good, man. You can also find us on YouTube at youtube.com at the PCS podcast. And then you can find myself at mheradia PTCG on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, no, always happy to have you all listening. Thanks for sticking through this episode. And as you go into the next week, in the coming weeks, as we prepare for some more events, good luck to everyone. And yeah, appreciate you listening as always.
Yeah, hopefully I have a better voice and don't have to feed myself and hack up a lung. So thanks for listening. We'll catch everyone next week. Michael, safe travels up to Philadelphia, and
Yep.
we'll talk to you soon.